We went down to the South Island. I'm paraphrasing heavily here, but they would say, oh, no, you guys from the North Island, you don't know what you're talking about. Your thermally modified wood doesn't work down here. We only use cedar, we only use Quila. And so we had to convince people. It took years.
What is success to you?
I think it was a learn to love it experience.
And there's always pitfalls that you can fall in, but then you've got no one else to blame but yourself.
Number one thing if you're struggling is to catch other people about it.
What's up, guys? I've got something really, really exciting for you today. We are giving away an exclusive 2-night stay at Abodo's iconic Cardrona cabin. This is a very unique offer as bookings are by invitation only, so listen up closely. This luxurious getaway is valued at $1,200, and to make it even better, we're going to throw in a $200 dinner voucher at the legendary Cardrona Hotel right next door. How awesome is that? Now, this is all you have to do to enter the competition. Just listen to the podcast, and in the first 3 weeks of October, you will find one secret phrase within each of those episodes. Each phrase you find gives you a chance to win, so you can enter up to 3 times, once per episode, to give you the best opportunity to win. Does that all make sense? So 3 episodes, 3 phrases, and 3 chances for you to win that awesome prize. So what do you do with the phrases after you find them? You simply go to abodo.co.nz/betterbuilder and you submit them there. You also need to follow Better Builder and Abodo on Instagram to be eligible, so remember to go do that as well. Now, flights aren't included, but trust me, it's going to be worth the trip. Full terms and conditions are also on the website, so make sure you go check that out. This will be an amazing experience for you and your lucky guests, so good luck. P.S. One of the phrases will be in this week's episode. Dan Gudsell, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Pleasure.
Yeah, it's so good to have you finally on. Obviously, you are the founder and owner and main man, big boss at Abodo. And you guys have been supporting this podcast since day dot. And I wanted to have you on because I wanted to hear all those business stuff.
The business stuff.
This is not a Abodo infomercial for those listening.
Yeah.
Because that would be boring. But I want to hear a little bit, because you've built a significant business from the ground up, and I want to hear all about it and all the juicy stuff. So thanks for coming on.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your sort of upbringing. Like, are you Auckland guy? Were you from out of town?
Wanganui, born and bred.
Cool.
Yeah.
What was
I don't
it
pull
like?
that out very often.
Yeah.
If I'm in Auckland, I say I'm from Auckland, and if I'm out of Auckland, I say hey, I'm from Wanganui, just to keep the locals happy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I lived in Adelaide for a few years, and man, they love that phrase, Adelaide, South Australian, born and bred, because they don't generally leave. Shout out to the South Australians. But okay, so Wanganui, what was life like growing up in Wanganui? Is that like big gangs and stuff like that? Is that Wanganui?
Is that what your only impression of
Yeah,
Wanganui?
that's right.
Oh, shit. Get the PR people on the line. Let's fix that. Well, look, yeah, it's a small rural town. Whatever it is, 30,000 people. When I was like 16, 17, we would have to wait. I think that no one went to the nightclubs until about midnight. So you'd kind of have to have a few pre-drinks and then wait until midnight, and then people might go out on a Saturday night. So it was super quiet. My dad was a farmer, and then swore he'd never be a farmer again, and then became a farmer. So I spent a fair bit of time on the farm with my little brother, fencing, rounding up cattle, a lot of stuff like that. So
cool. What sort of farm was it? Like cattle and
bull beef? Yeah.
Oh, okay. How big was it?
I don't know. Thousands of acres, I would say.
And how many acres is in a hectare? How many?
Oh God, don't ask me those tricky questions. You can talk about wood.
I had another farm on as well. I probably should have looked it up in the meantime, but yeah, it was okay. So
a decent sized farm. Yeah, a couple of houses on it. Full-time manager. Yeah.
Okay, so farming upbringing. Okay, so that's interesting. And then what happened? So you finished school in Wanganui?
Yeah, it's a long-winded story, but and essentially. To get into the school I wanted to go in Wanganui City College, I think it's called now, I had to pick something that only they did, and the only thing they did was Japanese. And so I'm in the country, I want to go to this city school. The only way they would accept me is if I accepted doing Japanese. So I studied Japanese from the age of 13.
Cool.
And so I would bus in from the country to Wanganui High School, do my Japanese, and that kind of got me in a journey of embracing Japanese culture. And I did 3 months in Japan when I was 15, and then did my last year of school in Japan when I was 17. So I've kind of got this weird upbringing of rural New Zealand life, and then this Japanese connection.
Yeah, that's super cool. And who were you like? If I had to ask your friends who's Dan in high school, what would they say?
Yeah, good question. Well, I was known. My biggest ever era was playing for I wasn't much of a rugby player, but in a country school in Wanganui, rugby's the only sport.
Yeah.
And I was known for my main era, which was playing rugby in front of the entire school, which is 1,200 people, big school in Wanganui, and hurt my hand, went to score a try, dropped the ball from about 1 metre above the ground in front of the entire school. So I was basically mocked for much of my youth. So definitely not an athlete. Kind of probably in the not a nerd, but somewhere between nerd and athlete. So sort of average Joe is probably.
Right. So you could hang out with the nerds comfortably. You could hang out with the jocks comfortably.
I'd play basketball at school. I'd get into fights. I'd get, suspended, stuff like that. But but definitely not bad boy. So middle of the road.
Okay. And so did you ever, was there any signs of entrepreneurship or anything like that in your early years?
Not really. My dad was always pretty into that kind of stuff. So, he was a farmer. His dad, he fell out with his own father and ended up getting into entrepreneurial kind of things, ran a cafe, started a business, did business consultancy. So I guess that was what I saw and what I grew up with.
Right. Okay. So then after that, what happened then? So you finished school.
Yeah.
You go to uni?
So the Japanese thing came in, and so I ended up moving to the Waikato and studying Japanese and international business. So, for whatever reason, I had the misfortune to, well, not misfortune, but bloody mindedness to continue with Japanese, which is a complicated language. I mean, to read and write Japanese, you probably need to know about 3,000 kanji, which are the complicated little characters that you've got to learn.
Wow. So it's a lot more complicated than English in terms of...
I think, well, at least from a written perspective, it is.
Right.
Yeah. And today, I mean, I don't use Japanese at all now, and I've forgotten a lot of it. But at that time, I was very focused on that. And so I moved to the Waikato. It was the only university that had a combination of international business and Japanese, and that's what I was interested in doing.
Cool. And so you didn't know any Japanese people or anything like that at this point?
Well, I'd done a good portion of school in Japan. So, well, not a good portion, but I'd done, maybe a year, 12 months of school in Japan, so I knew Japanese people.
Okay, right. Yeah. Sorry, I missed that little bit.
Yeah,
okay.
No worries.
So, okay. So you went to Japan and you actually liked what you saw. Japan's such a cool country, eh?
Quirky, super quirky.
It's so quirky and different. It's almost like on another planet, but like in a cool way. Well,
I mean, I was there, and when I was there was only 2 gaijins in my town, only 2 foreigners in my town. It was me and a guy, a ginger-haired Irish guy. There was one other Kiwi with us. And so we were quite unique. And so people would stop you on the, I'm 47 now, so we're talking whatever that is, 30 plus years ago. People would stop you and say, can I have a photo with you?
Wow.
Just because you're European.
So they would love Europeans, like they're very open.
It wasn't that they loved us, we were just novelties, Imagine if there was someone that was purple that just came into New Zealand and was walking around and, here's the purple guy, can I have a photo? Can I have a selfie with the purple guy?
That's cool, Yeah, I was, because the Rugby World Cup was on there, in like 2019 or something.
Yeah.
And then obviously you could see a lot of the culture and stuff like that, in a very basic level. But you could kind of just see, it was just like a cool place, And a lot of people that have been there just rave about it. And then obviously it's quite technologically savvy, right? Like the cities are like quite really first world cities.
It's a great place to visit right at the moment, and the exchange rate's really favourable. So I'm like, go to Japan if you've got a chance to take a holiday and you want something different and you want something affordable. Japan is a great choice.
And where do you go? Like if you go there for the first time, where would you go?
I don't know. Tokyo's the obvious place, big crazy city, but you can get a rail pass and move throughout the country pretty easily on the bullet train or the Shinkansen.
Yeah.
So most Kiwis would do that, and it's a great place to start.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. So international business.
Yeah.
What was the goal?
Well, the goal was to work for Fonterra. Well, that's what my dad told me. He said, look, Japan's the future, son. You should study, and then you could work for Fonterra. You could export milk to Japan. So that was kind of the direction.
Cool. So you were kind of putting the building blocks together for that career. That's quite smart. So you were like quite forward thinking. Your dad helped you with that.
Yeah.
And so did you end up working for Fonterra, or how did?
No, I just didn't get the job. Yeah, and it was like, oh shit, now what do I do? This is what we're building up to, and didn't get the job. So that's the story of my life. It's working really hard and then failing, and so eventually I applied for a couple of jobs. One of them was for working for DeWalt, selling power tools. And during university, I'd sort of paid for my way by working for my uncle, who was a builder. So I was on site, hammer hand type role, digging trenches. I developed a healthy respect for builders and the trade. I also understood that I was never going to be a builder. I just didn't have the skills, couldn't make it work. And I was telling you earlier, but my uncle, who's quite a skilled craftsman, I remember him like cutting out a moulding around another building element, and he showed me this piece of wood that he had cut out so perfectly, and it just went bang right into place. And I was just like, I'm never going to be that good. I'm never going to be a builder. So that that's kind of how I paid my way through university.
Right. And then what was then the transition point? Was it like quite a few years before you kind of started thinking timber? And what was the transition point there?
Yeah. So basically, I didn't get the DeWalt job. I got offered the DeWalt job. That was in Wellington. That was driving around one of those giant yellow transit vans selling power tools.
Cool.
And they liked me because I had some basic experience. And then the other job was for a trading company in Auckland, and that was exporting building materials to the South Pacific Islands. And most of my mates were in Auckland, so I just took the job in Auckland because that's where my mates were. And so I got in this role where I was basically exporting wood and other building materials to the Pacific Islands, like to hardware stores around the Pacific Islands. And I got a sort of a taste of what export looks like in wood, and started really appreciating an opportunity for New Zealand exported materials, particularly wood products. And I recognised that New Zealand actually had quite a unique position as a manufacturer and provider of timber.
Right. And does New Zealand have a good reputation then worldwide in terms of our timber, or where does that sit?
I think so. I mean, the cold hard reality is that more than half of our timber is exported as logs, mainly to Asia, China.
Right.
And so I think one of our aspirations at Abodo, I guess, is how do we create more mana for the industry? How do we be better than just exporting logs? Not saying that exporting logs is bad, but how do we create more value for our people, for our economy, for our industry, and elevate New Zealand timbers to the highest level, not just as a cost competitive commodity that you see rolling around on log trucks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and let's talk about that as well. But firstly, I want to know, so how did you then? Because it seems to me like it's quite complicated. It's not a low barrier to entry type of job, right? To start to get into like timber manufacturing and then start looking at exporting into other countries. Like, how did you? What opportunity did you really see in that market, and how did you sort of go about setting it up?
Yeah, so I was working for this trading company. I was exporting timber to the South Pacific Islands to, like, I guess the carters or placemakers type equivalent businesses. And when I was 23, 24, when you're that young, you kind of don't know what a good idea is and what a bad idea is, and you kind of don't know the limits. And I thought, shit, I can do this myself. I could create my own company in New Zealand exporting wood products around the world, and we'll start in the South Pacific because I kind of know what to do. And my dad had experience. He worked for Carter's back in the day, and he had some experience in the industry. And so I rang him up all excited, and I said, "Dad, I'm gonna start my own company. I'm gonna export timber." And he said, "Hey, look, Daniel, good idea, but I don't think that is the path for you. You're on a good salary. Just forget about it." And basically hung up. And I thought, oh, well, that was a bit of a downer. I was pumped up to make this happen, and Dad said no.
Anyway, all the air out of your balloon.
Yeah. And half an hour later, he called me back, and he goes, "You know what? You should do this. I've got your back. I'll support you." And he must have sort of thought about that and thought, you know what? If Daniel fails, it's cool. He's 24. What could go wrong? And so he supported me from day one.
Very cool. And that must be because he was quite, you said he's also like quite open-minded,
Yeah,
entrepreneurial. And
yeah.
he probably would have just done the dad answer, hung
Yeah.
up and then gone like, wait a minute.
100%, yeah. Classic dad answer, like try and stop your child from,
Hurting themselves.
falling in a hole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an absolute miracle I made it through that first couple of years. Like, I think I had $50,000 starting capital, which is my total savings. And if you buy a truckload of wood, that's more than $50,000. And so I needed the guy on the Pacific Islands to pay me for that load so I could pay the supplier and, my sawmiller in New Zealand.
Right. You had sort of some terms set up.
Oh God, yeah. It's a miracle made it through that, because it's not like I say, you can't just rock up with 50 grand. Like, you need millions of dollars to do these sorts of trades. But I just, somehow fumbled my way through it.
Right. And then what, you just sort of do like, was your business at that point just like one delivery at a time and see how it go? Or?
Yeah. Oh man, like I say, I set up in this little warehouse in Kingsland. It was not unlike this little box we're sitting in right now. And I had one box like this for my bedroom, and then I had another box that had a trestle table on it, and in those days a fax machine, because this is 23, 24 years ago. And so I'd roll out of bed. In those days I was still wearing the boxer shorts, the shiny boxer shorts that were cool. Roll out of bed with
so
those.
Disgusting, those things.
It had Fred Flintstone or something like that. I don't know. And I rolled out of bed, and then I could hear the fax machine going as some of the first orders were coming through. And there was like an order from Tonga for 100 cubic meters of wood. And so that's where it started. Like, sleep here, eat here, work here. And so it was just me. And then I slowly started hiring people.
Yeah.
And the real takeaway I got in the islands, I guess, have you ever read the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho?
I think I did, but like it was years ago.
Yeah.
But I have read it, yes.
You kind of go through these life experiences, and then later you find out why. In the Pacific Islands, the reason I thought the Pacific Islands was a good place to start is because they were cutting down their own tropical rainforest timbers. And so Samoa and Vanuatu, they were cutting down their own rainforest timbers and building their houses, which is fine. It's how they did it for thousands of years. But I recognised that wasn't sustainable long term. And so selfishly, for me anyway, I could export New Zealand timber to fill the void. And in those days, most of this construction timber was supplied in Samoa from their own rainforest timbers. But increasingly that was running out. And so that was the opportunity that I sort of jumped on with Abodo.
Okay, so there was like a bigger purpose or like a bigger opportunity. There was an opportunity, but you could kind of see, well, we could just grow it here, give it to them, and then they don't have to like chop into their old growth trees.
Yeah, they were basically running out anyway, so they had no choice. And you could say, is there a sustainability focus? It was selfish initially. How do I seize a market opportunity to sell something?
Yeah, but isn't that like how a lot of isn't that how we solve problems in the world, like through that capitalistic methods where people are, say, selfish capitalists, but you're constantly figuring out ways to solve problems, and even though it is selfish, you end up as a byproduct solving problems that actually would help the environment as well, right? Don't you think?
I mean, it's classic opportunity, right? Here's an opportunity, it's growing. And we can talk about Abodo and what Abodo does today a bit later, but ultimately there's a need for a more sustainable solution. I hate the word sustainable, but a new renewable, available solution for future generations.
Yeah, because the sustainable, it's kind of like a word that's been, it's been thrown around to some people they love it because it's sort of, and other people like really hate it because it's just almost associated with like the global warming and associated with climate change, and and then lefties go and then the people on the right go no, but then it's probably more just it's about looking after the environment and making sure that we can have trees left in the future for us to be able to kind of keep existing, and it's almost just more like a basic form of making sure we're looking after the earth, right? It's not like
I mean, that's a factor, but to be commercially sustainable, you need to be environmentally sustainable, right?
Yeah.
And so these guys in the South Pacific were commercially cutting down their tropical rainforest so they could sell some 2x4s, right? But it wasn't a long-term sustainable business because they didn't have sustainability at their core.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's the main takeaway I saw from that was to be successful in business long term, you need to have a sustainable, if it's a building material, for example, you need to have a sustainable source that's going to be there for future generations.
Okay, guys, this episode is heating up nicely. And speaking of heat, you know what else brings the heat? Abodo's timber processing. Abodo strengthens New Zealand radiata pine using heat and steam, which transforms it into high-performing feature timbers, as you guys may know. And on that note, your secret phrase for this episode is heat tempered. That is heat tempered. Quickly go to abodo.co.nz/betterbuilder to enter this week's phrase and go in the draw to win a weekend stay for two at Abodo's Cadrona Cabin. Good luck, guys. Now let's get back to the episode with Dan. Well, let's talk about timber a little bit.
Yeah.
Give me a little bit of a rundown. We had a bit of a conversation before, and I'm an idiot when it comes to like timber and like how you guys manufacture it and how you treat it and move it around. And so talk to me a little bit about how it gets done here in New Zealand versus overseas.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of timber, especially like cedar or whatever, you don't have to pick on them necessarily, but it gets imported from overseas. Let's talk a little bit without naming names or something like so people don't get offended. How does it work?
I'll talk a little bit about the Abodo why, and then I can move into that.
Exactly, because it's connected.
The takeaway I had from the South Pacific Islands 20 plus years ago was that people were harvesting old growth forests, whether it's a tropical rainforest or it's a temperate rainforest, and that there was an opportunity to offer an alternative and rapidly renewable New Zealand grown pine. And sure, we started in the South Pacific Islands, but then I started to recognise that that wasn't just the Pacific Islands challenge, that was a global challenge, and that today we import all sorts of tropical hardwoods into New Zealand from Indonesia. I won't name species. We import a whole lot of high-performance tropical or old-growth timber cladding. I mean, the cedars of this world, New Zealand imports about $100 million a year of western red cedar or cedar species from British Columbia. And these are all slow-growing, old-growth species, and they essentially are unlikely to be there for future generations. And so the big opportunity here is to say, how do we take our fast-growing radiata pine from New Zealand and transform it to offer an alternative, a genuine alternative, to these old-growth species so that we can continue to have beautiful timbers cladding our houses.
So the timber coming from overseas, let's face it, it's beautiful timber.
It's
love
beautiful.
it.
Yeah, beautiful.
But it's from these old trees. And how old are these trees?
Yeah, I mean, western red cedar, which is a beautiful species that you'll find in New Zealand used architecturally all the time. Most builders and most architects would be familiar with it. If you go to a fancy batch, say up at Omaha or Queenstown, you will see houses clad in beautiful western red cedar. What most people don't know is those trees, the type vertical grain material is 300 to 500 year old trees, some of it up to 800 years. So I took a piece of western red cedar from a building site, just a regular, building site, had it dated, the small piece of it dated at the Auckland University tree ring dating laboratory, and it's a 6-inch piece, right? So it's only a small piece of a log that was massive. How old do you think the oldest growth ring was on that little piece?
I don't know, like 200 years old, something like that.
Not bad, yeah, pretty good guess. So the oldest growth ring on this little piece was dated to 1727.
Wow.
So and a cedar tree is much bigger than 6 inches, right? So it would be fair to say if the oldest growth ring on that little piece was 300 years old, it's a good chance that log would have been 500 to 800 years old.
Wow.
And people don't understand that. And look, I love the species, it's beautiful wood, but we can't continue to cut trees that are 500, 600, 800 years old. That's not a long-term proposition. And if we were to choose, say, a kauri tree in New Zealand and we said, all right, let's cut that down to clad our house, that would not happen in New Zealand, right? Imagine what would happen.
Yeah.
And so how do we take our rapidly renewable New Zealand trees that grow in 25 to 30 years and then transform them into a genuine alternative that was something that performs and looks like Western red cedar, and that became the Abodo focus. That became our purpose. How do we create lifetime beauty for a better tomorrow is kind of the Abodo purpose. So
yeah, okay. So when you say that you need a comparable, what does that involve? So
that's a good question.
So when they bring let's talk about that first.
That's a good question because radiata pine is fast growing and it's renewable. You can see it everywhere in New Zealand. There's a lot of things that it is, but there's a lot of things that it isn't, and it's not durable. It's not stable. It doesn't look nice. It doesn't have any of the characteristics of, say, Western red cedar. And so it needs a lot of work. It's starting at a pretty low level. And so we just spent years and years trying to figure out what technology we could apply to radiata to upgrade it from a fairly poor performing exterior timber that would normally be pumped full of chemicals, would normally be H3 treated with copper chrome arsenic or some sort of form of copper-based preservative. How do we do all of that, make it more stable, make it more durable, make it look better without pumping it full of chromes, arsenic and other kind of heavy metals? And we came across this technology called thermal modification, which was invented and, I guess, commercialized in Finland. So the Finns had developed this process to modify the cellular structure of the wood using only heat and steam. And they called the technology thermowood, and the wood was coming out more dimensionally stable. The wood was coming out a chocolate brown colour, and the wood had a natural durability to it. And so we thought, great, this looks like a good way to upgrade radiata pine. The problem was that no one had actually tried this technology on New Zealand radiata pine. The Finns had been working with species like spruce and Nordic pine, which has a sort of a natural higher durability. And so what we had to do was go, all right, well, we've got radiata pine and we kind of know what the process looks like. How do we optimize a schedule or a thermal modification schedule designed just for radiata pine that's going to provide a performance that is similar or better than Western red cedar in terms of durability? And so we started this journey. And the only way to really prove that is field testing. And field testing takes time.
Right. And what do you mean by field testing? Like,
field testing means creating test samples and then putting them next to a species with a known durability, say cedar or macrocarpa or maybe chemically treated wood, and then setting them up in a decay test where you accelerate the decay and you see which one decays first. And if your test sample outperforms a sample that has known durability, then you go, that's great. If it rots, then you go, oh, shit, we've got to go back to the drawing board.
Right. So it's like a clinical trial for like timber.
Kind of, yeah. It just takes, honestly, it's going to take a minimum 6 to 8 years to get a result. Because you want to rot the timber in natural conditions. You just want to do it as fast as you can.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, so then what did you guys come up with when you started doing that? So, and how you guys innovating? Because I guess a lot of that is innovation, right? Constant innovation, testing, research and development around how you guys can improve it. So where you're at, like, in terms 100%. Of where you guys are now?
We did a lot of work there just to get code compliance because, the concept of having untreated radiata pine on the outside of a house, it didn't go down well, leaky homes, all that kind of stuff. So people, there is no pathway to compliance for untreated radiata pine used as cladding. And so what we had to do was provide enough information to the authorities and get what's known as a code mark certificate to get a path to compliance. And so that took, I don't know how long that took us, quite a few years. We eventually got this product code marked. We had all the data. It was like, ta-da, we've got this, right? And we launched it on the market and we thought this is going to sell like hotcakes. Just like radio silence. The tumbleweeds were blowing through the office like, it didn't sell. And we realized then the enormity of the task was how do we now convince people to trust this product? And builders and architects that were like, hell no, we're not putting that on our house. It's not tested. It hasn't been around long enough. And so we had to start really spending. It took us like 4 or 5 years just to get momentum. People seeing the product, people trusting the product. We went down to the South Island and they were, I'm paraphrasing heavily here, but they would say, oh, no, you guys from the North Island, you don't know what you're talking about. Your thermally modified wood doesn't work down here. Or your radiata pine from the North Island doesn't work down here. We only use cedar. We only use Quila. And so we had to convince people. And one of the reasons we built that showroom, that award-winning showroom with Dunlop Builders and with our good friends at Assembly Architects, is to say, let's build it. Let's show people. Let's not tell people, let's show people this is what it does. This is what it looks like. You can drive past it every time you go skiing at Cadrona, and you can check it out. And people started then to believe. And that took years.
Yeah.
And it was painful.
And that's a really cool building, by the way. Super cool. We're making some plans to get down there.
You're welcome. You've got a bedroom up there. It's got your name on it. Little sign.
Brad. Love it. Write that down. We'll write that down to keep you accountable to that. And we're working a little bit with our listeners as well to see if we can do like a little bit of something special for them to get some access to that as well. Okay, so you had to. So if you could prove to the South Island guys, your architects, builders down there, that it works down there, then it's sort of easier to sell it into the North Island guys. And how long was that? How long ago was that?
I think we built that. I can't remember now. 5 or 6 years ago is my best guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is an indication of the industry. The industry is normally pretty slow to make changes, and quite rightly, because there's been a lot of building materials that have failed at people's expenses. I mean, Leaky Home is just one example. That's a system failure. So people, the industry, particularly the trades, they want to see it and they want to believe it. Even Dunlop Builders, when they built our cabin, it's got these exposed studs, and one of the studs is 6.6 meters high, and they were like, "Oh, that's going to move," and they came back and they said, "Actually, that's dead straight," and it took for them. I was paying for it, but it took for them to do it and see it to believe it.
Right.
Yeah, and I get it. That's just how it is, and so you've got to get that trust, and that's taken quite some time for us to develop.
Yeah, and that skepticism is it's probably a good thing, right?
100%. Yeah,
you don't want builders just willy-nilly new material. Let's give it a go. Let's see. So you want them to have high skepticism. You want them to, unless it's really proven, they shouldn't use it.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess one of the challenges we're facing today is that there's now some thermally modified woods coming into New Zealand from other locations that haven't necessarily done the due diligence that we have in New Zealand conditions. And so, I don't want to be the person pointing at something else, but there needs to be a healthy dose of skepticism and due diligence on the use of any building material. And I think it's great that the industry is slower to adopt. It's just how do we get that balance between moving towards the future and making sure that we're building durable, resilient homes.
Yeah. So you guys are... So it's kind of like, it's impossible to talk about Abodo and to talk about the timber. They kind of go intertwined, right? So we'll talk about a little bit of both. But so you guys have, so you've gone to a point where it's thermally modified. It's to a point now where it's like it's strong enough. It's not going to move.
Yeah.
Talk to me about like the chemicals. So you guys don't have any, use any chemicals or anything to strengthen it or to help it last longer or anything like that? Or what's your point of view on that?
Yeah. So, I'll just back up the truck a little bit. So we thermally modified the radiata pine. We developed a thermal modification schedule to make it durable, on par or slightly better than Western red cedar as a comparison. Then it was like, well, what do we do next? Because the radiata pine itself has kind of got quite a flat, bland grain, whereas if you look at a premium timber like Western red cedar, you'll see this tight vertical grain kind of appearance. And so we developed this patented process where we sort of we laminated it up the boards to create this sort of vertical grain and more of a premium appearance. And that also had the benefit of improving the stability further.
Okay.
So we've said, let's thermally modify the cleared radiata pine, and now let's develop a process where we can laminate it and orientate the grain with a vertical grain to get the best possible performance. And so old school craftsmen know that a vertical grain performance is better than a flat grain, and really skilled builders, for example, if they're putting cedar up, they will put the more vertical grain boards facing towards the weather because they know that's going to get the most amount of punishment. And so part of the Abodo IP was let's create an engineered vertical grain, so every board's vertical grain, and let's apply that to the wood. And so that created two more benefits. One, looks nice, looks more premium, and two, improves the stability further. And most builders that are using our product go, shit, it's lightweight, stable, it's dead straight. We can work with this material. And so to answer your question, we don't add any chemicals to the wood. It doesn't need any chemicals for durability. However, if we do export, say, to Australia or somewhere with termites, we do need to add a preservative for termites. We use the lowest in class preservative that has the lowest possible impact to humans, but it is a chemical. We need it in places like Australia or the South Pacific Islands because they've got termites. We export to places like Hawaii, they've got termites. They will eat the wood, and so we need to add some preservative there for durability.
Right.
But if we're talking Europe or New Zealand or the US, it's normally zero chemicals.
Right, and do other so a lot of the timber that comes into New Zealand are chemically modified? Like, do they have use a lot of chemicals on them, or not really?
Not really. Most of the timber traditionally we've used, like the tropical hardwoods, the Queelas, the Vitexes, the cedars, they're generally chemical free, so they're pretty good from a toxicity perspective.
Okay, no, that's good.
It's more the locally made products that we'd use. If we use radiata pine, we put an H3.2 deck down. It'll be CCA treated. That stands for copper, chrome, arsenic. We can do better than that. I'm sure we can do better than that. Abodo sells CCA treated product. Don't get me wrong, but I think we need to be able to raise the bar a little bit there in terms of product.
Yeah. So talk to me then a little bit about I guess the innovation side. So you guys, does it ever stop? In terms of the research development, trying different things. What are you guys working on at the moment?
Non-stop. Where we're working on the two big pain points for Abodo and what we've said from the market anyway with natural wood is, one, it needs to be fire retardant somehow, and two, can you reduce the maintenance? Because people love natural wood, this whole biophilic design, bringing more natural materials into the house, that's all good. If you want to clad your house with wood, that comes with a maintenance expectation. So how do we reduce the maintenance intervals, and ultimately how do we make it fire retardant so that it can be used for commercial buildings or for apartment blocks and things like that? So they're the two big things. We've been working, I don't know how long we've been working on fire retardancy. That is an absolute nightmare. If you want to spend a whole lot of money, one option is to dig a big hole, put a whole lot of cash into it and light a bonfire. The other option is to do fire testing. And so I would like to think that sometime next year we'll have a fire retardant cladding that meets the Type A, which is the highest fire standard in New Zealand. We'll launch an Abodo product that does that. And that's a
Cool.
better builder announcement.
Ooh,
You
exclusive.
heard it first here. So yeah, we're working on that. And then maintenance is ongoing, mate. We just need to figure out how we can reduce the maintenance element on natural wood products so that people will choose that more compared to another building material.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, it's exciting. You guys are always kind of coming up with new ways. I walked through your showroom and your warehouse at the airport, close to the airport, a little while ago, and it was quite cool to see because as I look through, I mean, obviously you guys have all the samples, but when I looked outside, I could see all the timber sort of being aged in the weather, and talk to me about that. So people obviously always look at a sample, the consumer, and they go, cool, I want my house to look like this, but they don't necessarily know what it's going to look like, 5 years later. So talk to me about what you guys do there.
Yeah, expectation management is the number one part of the game. And so in the early days, the only way you learn is by making mistakes, right? And so one way to learn is by making mistakes. And so when we first launched the Abodo product, we were using these different types of coatings, and some of them started getting moldy and some of them started flaking off, and then we were like, oh God. So we thought, how do we own this problem? And we own this problem by creating our own finishes. And so we have our own formulation of finishes made here in New Zealand that's used as a tested system with our materials. And so we narrow down the possibility of problems. And then we say, all right, well, let's give some visibility to homeowners or builders or architects onto how this finish is going to weather. And so on our website, you'll find time-lapse videos of standard finishes and how they weather over a period of time so that we can give people an expectation on what to manage. Wood, when it's put outside, is always going to go grey eventually. And so how do we manage that expectation, and how do we manage the recoat expectations and all these kinds of things and the expectations of homeowners? And so we've got a lot of exposure racks around the country. We've got exposure racks in Asia, in Australia, where we are constantly evaluating how performance how our coatings perform. And we can also can have people in to either our site at Mangere or Ohiniwai and show them how a product will weather over time. What does it look like in a year or two's time? And I think being able to give builders and architects the chance to send their own clients in and have that experience, have the clients understand that piece, understand what they're signing up for maintenance is pretty important.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, eh? And just from a builder's point of view as well, and obviously I'm involved in my own building business as well. You're constantly looking for ways to differentiate yourself as a builder. If we talked about this in Better Builder Club toolbox session actually this week around how do you set yourself apart, and because if you don't give yourself a point of difference, then people can only choose you on price, and so you want to move away from getting chosen on price, right, as a builder. So what are ways that builders can use you guys to kind of set themselves apart, maybe just give them a point of difference? I know that you guys do have your some samples there. Like what are sort of ways that they can maybe use you guys to make themselves look better to the client?
Yeah, I think builders have a super important role as a consultant because they are people that know the products, they know what to expect, they know how the house is going to end up, and so they've got a really important role. Builders have got a really important role on managing customers' expectations and making sure that they're pointed in the right direction. And some people are quite cool with maintenance. They're quite happy to be out there re-oiling their deck every day, and there's other clients that don't want that. And so it's understanding what clients' needs are. And so what Abodo can do, I guess, is happy to receive clients either at Cadrona, down at our site at a Cadrona, or in Mangere. We're happy to talk through different finish options and their pros and cons. Happy to send out samples. Builders can order free samples on our website.
Cool.
So you can go online, and if you want to get a couple of options to show your customers, you can do that. There is a VIP code for that. I can't remember what it is, but we can put it in the chat or on your podcast somewhere.
Yeah, we'll just link it below. So
all builders can order samples free of charge on our site with a little code, and they can be couriered directly to your client, or they can send them to the your builder's office, and you can show different samples.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's just from a sales process point of view for builders, we've realised that if you, a lot of builders go through the process, especially if you get the sort of the higher end clientele that you're targeting, they need to get that sort of like preliminary agreement signed so they could start sort of get the project ready for construction and have some sort of security, right? And obviously not all builders do that, but that's kind of like a good way of doing it. But whenever you get, and that's just like a sales thing I've come to realize over the years as well, the more touch points you have with your client, the better chance you're going to get them to sign, whether it's the building agreement or whether it's the preliminary agreement. You're not going to meet them on site, put an agreement in front of them, and they just going to sign. So sometimes what we used to do at my company, and we've had other builders do it as well, is it's like a bad way of saying it, but we used to call it like bullshit touch point. So you kind of like, you want to increase the amount of times that you're interacting with the client. Yeah. So there might be real touch points where you have to you meet them on site, and you can actually look at the site and you can walk around. And there's other times obviously when you have the initial coffee and et cetera, or meet with the architect. Those are like real touch points. But then you want to put in, it's not really bullshit touch points. It's helpful, but we call it bullshit touch points. And another a bullshit touch point that they could have that actually is valuable is to kind of either order one of your samples and then turning up at the client's house and kind of just quickly dropping off the samples to them and talking through the different options. Yeah. Or even better, meet their client at your showroom. Yeah. I'm sure you guys will make them a lovely flat white and show them around and show how the timber can age, and that's just another touch point. 100%. And then when you then get to a point where you actually get someone to sign on the dotted line, it's much easier, right?
Correct. You've managed to establish a relationship of trust, and you can share information. So I'd endorse that.
Yeah. So we'll probably change the name of bullshit touch point, but you get what
something more catchy,
something a bit more positive. Anyway, that's what we called it. When we look at you guys, New Zealand Timber. The process, the supply chain,
Yeah.
a little bit different than just sort of importing timber and chopping it up here and distributing it. Explain to me how your supply chain is different, how it is, because we had a bit of a discussion around how it actually is a lot more complicated than people think.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and we're a fast-growing business. We're exporting, I don't know, more than half of our volume, and we're built this thing from the ground up. There was no thermal modification kiln of scale in New Zealand. We got radio silence. We've slowly built up the business to a reasonable size now. We're employing, north of 100 people. We are buying wood from, all around the country, mainly the centre of the North Island. We are giving we have a lot of partnerships with businesses outside of Abodo, the sawmills that we work with, the reman plants that we work with, the coatings companies that we work with. And so, it is something that we've started from the ground up. And a lot of the other, our competitors are people that import product into New Zealand and manufacture it. They've been doing that for, some of them 50 years plus.
Yeah.
And it's importing some wood from overseas, it's cutting it up and moulding it, whereas we're trying to build a manufacturing base, and that means investing money into thermal modification kilns and remanufacturing plants and all these sorts of things. And so it's really hard to get that balance right. And we've really battled. I mean, COVID completely destroyed us. We had plant and equipment on order that got caught up in COVID, didn't arrive. We had a fire. We had, I don't know, so many problems other than the lockdown that affected our ability to supply. And the challenge, I guess, is getting that balance of demand and supply right, and committing money to build capacity and then understanding what the demand is.
Yeah.
And, we're not talking tiddlywinks here. I mean, our reman plant in Oheniwai that Abodo's building at the moment, that's sort of $15 million project. Do we have demand for that at the moment? No. Where's that going to come from? Well, we're going to have to sell that demand. And so it's just getting all of that right. And equally, if you don't have enough capacity and you've got too much demand, you're going to have customers that are pissed off because they haven't got their product. And so there's a real balance around building the business, scaling the business, and just getting the timing right between having capacity and having demand.
Yeah.
And you know this, but like if an architect specifies, or a builder or someone specifies a project, and it's going to be, when's the product going to be needed? Who knows? You've got a consent, you have this, and you have delay, there's resource consent, consultants. Who knows what's going to come in, and who knows when that actual product's demanded, and people can't tell us that, right? We're just expected to have it there, so it can be delivered within a certain time frame, and we've battled with that. I mean, and the struggle was real. We are working, 24/7 to grow the business and meet demand, and it's not easy, and in many cases we haven't been able to meet people's expectations because the plane is taking off. We're flying the plane, and we're also bolting on an extra jet here, and we're putting on an engine here and another wing. It's challenging. It's very exciting, and we're very positive, but it is challenging.
Yeah, I can imagine, eh? And then and obviously then you got the export side as well, right? So then you got to manage that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, over COVID, a lot of people said to us, hey, Abodo, this is bullshit. You're exporting stuff overseas, and why aren't you meeting our current demands? But then, at the end of last year, sales dropped off a massive amount because, we had this sort of COVID bounce, or the dead cat bounce, or all the different phrases that are referred to it, and no one ordered anything. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Thank you, export customers, for helping us out of that demand. And so export is a key part of our strategy. We want to have an impact as a business. We want to solve problems for New Zealand consumers. We want to provide an alternative to old growth species, not just in New Zealand but globally. And I think we've been quite successful in Australia, in the UK, Europe, and now North America, where we're going toe to toe. We're bringing some mana to the New Zealand wood products industry, selling high performance, high value products, and cladding houses that are, $10 million houses in the Hamptons, $20 million houses in the Hamptons, Malibu, London, like globally. And one thing that keeps me going is that we've got world-class New Zealand-made products sold at the highest possible level in the world. And if I'm feeling unmotivated, or I'm feeling, overwhelmed, just going to see some of these projects and seeing it, it's like, fuck yes, we nailed it. We're doing this at the highest possible level.
Yeah, I've been definitely, I've been super impressed, just the fact that you guys have been able to achieve so much in fairly short period of time, you know what I mean? These kind of businesses, like you say, they're sort of 50-year plus type of businesses before they hit the scale and the exposure that you guys have been able to do. So talk to me a little bit about, I'm just interested to hear around the business side.
Yeah.
So how many, you guys have offices overseas, right? You guys have sales people set up overseas. How does that work?
Yeah, we don't have offices overseas. We've got a couple of people in the UK, a couple of people in Australia. We've got travelling reps, so guys and girls that travel to the Pacific Islands, to Asia. We're looking at putting someone in the US. And so offshore, it works through trusted partners. So we've got distributors, for example, if there's people that are listening from Australia, we've got a partnership with Britain Timbers over there. They're a known timber distributor. So our guys help create demand and help herd the kittens, and Britain Timbers will supply the product to the builder or to the timber merchant. And so over there, we are working with trusted partners that that deliver the goods, import it and deliver it. And we're responsible for creating the product and then creating the demand. Yeah. Making sure that we provide a product and a system, sampling, marketing, coatings, accessories. Bang, there you go, guys. It's almost like the McDonald's model. We supply the tested kit of parts for export markets.
And what's the messaging? So you turn up in Australia, and you kind of what's the sales point? What's the point of difference in terms of you go? It's from New Zealand. What else do you say?
Well, you show up from New Zealand, they go, oh, "You're a Kiwi, fuck off," go home, and then you sort of bounce back and give them a couple of jabs, and then they say, "Oh, actually, this Kiwi guy can't be that bad," and then you say, "Look, you guys are harvesting in Australia. You guys are harvesting your old growth forests in Australia. You know, reality is that Victoria's just been shut down for native logging. WA's been shut down for native logging, so Australians." Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what side of the fence you're sitting, are going to need to import more of their exterior timbers, their claddings and their deckings. And who better to import it from than their good cousins across the road in New Zealand? You know, it's 2 days on a ship. We're right here. We've got renewable alternatives to Australian hardwoods. Everyone loves Australian hardwoods, great products, but unfortunately, they're just not going to be there. And so instead of importing something horrible from Southeast Asia, you know, go with a trusted FSC certified renewable product from NZ and one that performs. And we've been selling in Australia now for 10 years. So we've got a track record that we can point at.
Yeah, that's great, eh? And you guys are lucky. He's so lucky. You guys are lucky that New Zealand have such great architecture as well, eh? Because it really presents your product really well.
Yeah.
And New Zealand architects are very well respected worldwide. So beautiful projects, boom, New Zealand architect, boom, Abodo feature product on there. Yeah. Good, like a match made in heaven, right?
Yeah, but if you look at our website, we've got a bunch of really cool Australian architecture on there too, and I find that the Australian architects do some really cool stuff. I mean, it's quite unique taking the New Zealand and Australian style of architecture and then showing that to people in Europe or in the US, and they'll go, "Oh, that looks cool. We probably wouldn't do that here, but that looks cool," and it's a sort of, I guess, it bunches up with our brand. It's not our work. I mean, the designers are doing the work, and the builders are doing the work. It's their work, but we can at least have some benefit from association. It's our material, right? So, and look at what they've done with it.
Yeah. So from a business point of view, let's be fair here. You have built this business up. How long has it been running for now?
23 years now, I think. Yeah.
From zero or $50,000 of savings.
Yeah.
And where are you guys at now in terms of revenue?
We're knocking about 90 million.
Okay. That's not bad. It's not bad growth, kind of going like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, shit, I won't gift wrap it. It's been hard, like every day is hard. But it's very satisfying.
What was the hardest time you went through over the last, 20?
Oh God, mate, it's been so many of them. It's a roller coaster. But I mean, GFC was a good example where the bank were like, "Nah, we're shutting you guys down," and then they said, "Actually, we'll give you more money, but you need to pay more for the money," and just real shitty things like, I won't mention the bank. My dad did verbally abuse one of the bank managers at the time. they said, okay, we'll give you more money, but you need to pay more for that money, and then you need to pay a sign-up fee of $5,000 to get the loan. And we're like, we're struggling here. It's the middle of the GFC, and you guys want to cut us under the knees, and you want to charge us more money when we're hurting the most, and charge us. So just that sort of stuff. COVID was super tough because we had, and I'm sick of talking about COVID, to be honest, but it was tough because we were locked down, forests were locked down, there were logs sitting on the skids that were going blue because they couldn't be harvested, and we had everyone shouting at us for wood. And then Auckland was locked down and everything else was going, so all the builders outside of Auckland. And so, I mean, that was really painful for me because we had so many orders and so many customers saying, where's our wood? That, you're letting people down, and there's jack you can do about it. And so there's been cycles, the industry cycles. Most people listening to this podcast will understand that, but those cycles are hard. And so, yeah, Lord knows how many experiences we've had like that, ups and downs, conversations with the team to say, guys, we're going to have to buckle our belts here because it's going bad. And I'm quite proud to say that in many of these situations, it was our senior leadership team that took pay cuts before anyone else had to suffer. I've taken many pay cuts before I've touched anyone else's salary over COVID. Our guys kept everyone, paid everyone. The government, some of the government put some money in, but we kept everyone paid so that when we turned the lights back on again, we had a team. We didn't. Some other companies started taking that as an opportunity to reduce their headcounts. We didn't do that. We're like, no, we see the long-term vision. The opportunity is there. The demand is real. The need is real. We're just going to do it. Push the button.
Yeah. Well, I've walked through your offices, and I've dealt with a lot of your staff, and it's obvious that there's good culture there. It's a very sort of family vibe, not very corporate, very sort of, even though you guys are professional, it's a very family kind of vibe there. People are very nice to each other, it looks like to me. How do you cultivate that culture during difficult times? There's builders listening to this, most likely that the market's tough, especially in New Zealand.
Yeah.
They have a head count that is probably a excess to requirement right now, and they may want to hold on, through the difficult time, or they may need to get rid of some people or something. I don't know. What advice do you have, I guess, or how have you dealt with kind of keeping that sort of positive vibe going?
Yeah. I think it's transparency and communication. And so every quarter I like to give the team an update on where we're at. Guys, here's where we're at. It's not good. Or here's where we're at. It's good. This year it's like, hey, last year was not great with the local downturn. Here's what we plan to do, and it's 10% more than last year. And here's how we're tracking against that. And so I think people kind of know what's going on. We publish our numbers, our sales numbers with the team, so everyone's got eyes on what's going on. There's no right or wrong answer. Hey, we need to retrench some people, or we need to keep our people. There's no right or wrong answer for that. It really depends on the situation and also the long-term strategy. And sometimes it's better, in my mind anyway, to take the short-term pain if we know we need a world-class team to deliver a project or a product or whatever it might be. We're committed to that. We might have to take some short-term pain as a business owner to get through. That might not always be the right answer. And the best thing you can do, in my mind, is just be as transparent as you can and say, guys, here's the numbers. This is what I'm looking at. This is, here's what the strategy is. And at least people know what to expect.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
Yeah, I think that's really good, I think that communication piece. I think even builders can learn a lot just to, because sometimes they want to share too much with the team, because I know, you don't want to share necessarily like what you charge them out for. Like builders just assume, you don't want to tell your staff much because they can just go out on their own and do it themselves.
Yeah.
So, historically they've been a bit more closed off. So I think it's a great thing to share. Hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're up to. Here's some projects coming up. Here's ones that were going to come up that's not coming up, and here's the challenges at the moment.
Yeah.
And like you say, I think people can get the vibe You know, you only have to rock up to the office a few days and people are going to go, oh, it's good or not good. Just with, you know, so it's sometimes better just to share with them. And I guess there probably is a line as well from a leadership point of view. Just time-wise, you know, we're not going to be able to cover everything on this episode, Dan. I think me and you could talk for hours and hours. But I'm kind of interested to know, because you've run this business, you've built it up to, you know, 80 mil, 90 mil, like that's very impressive. What sort of, you know, now that you're at this point, like what does success mean to you now?
I guess success for me is scaling the business. And I don't mean that from a startup private equity kind of position. I mean impact. And so what can we do? We've spent years and years and years building a foundation, a technology, a product, a supply chain. How do we make an impact? How do we actually provide a genuine alternative? Australia's going to need tons of wood. You know, they've just created some regulations to reduce the ability of Brazilian hardwoods to get into the US. Everyone needs wood. How do we participate in a portion of that? Abodo's not the solution to everyone's problems. Totally respect that. But how do we actually make an impact? How do we provide New Zealand, for example, as an alternative to the 20 or 30,000 cubes of Western red cedar that we bring in every? How are we big enough to make an impact?
Yeah.
So how do we magnify what Abodo does today?
Yeah.
And deliver it well.
I love it. And when you've had so much success, and obviously failures along the way, but you've had a lot of success. Like, so, I guess it's success leaves clues, you know, as they say. And what sort of habits have you implemented in your life, or mentality that you, if you have to self-reflect, you know, which is not always the easiest thing to do. What sort of habits or mentality do you have that has helped you kind of become more successful, I guess, that people can sort of look to?
Yeah. Well, me personally, I guess in the last little bit, I'm 47 now, I'm 48 in January. I've just been trying to manage my energy levels. I think that's been really key for me, and focusing more on wellness. Like, I used to be the guy buying tequila shots at the bar, beer and a shot, take that. Like, that's not me anymore. I've got a family, I've got responsibilities. I want to spend more time with my family. I want to spend more time optimizing my own health and performance. And so that means for me drinking less alcohol. It means got that annoying little ring that you pointed out that tells me if I'm not sleeping enough, and I'm having the saunas, I'm having the cold baths, all of that stuff. Diet, super important, just to get that extra 3 or 4% performance out of myself. And for me, it's just about optimizing that, because I need to be performing at the highest possible level. And so how do I give my body and my brain the best chance of doing that?
Yeah, I think that's super important. I'm definitely working on that at the moment, just trying to get healthy again, you know what I mean? And just the mentality around how that, the funny thing is, the more healthier you are, the more energy you have, you know, it's going to add more money to your bank account by the end of the year anyway. So, you know, sometimes taking an hour away from work to go do a workout or something like that, you're going to see the financial benefit in the future from that anyway. So we kind of forget that sometimes. Do you ever get, you know, depressed or anxiety? You know, it's when there's a lot of pressure on your shoulders. I assume that there's there's days where you're not sort of always charging.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And how do you sort of deal with that?
Yeah. I mean, I like to have my sleep. If I don't get my sleep, I'm not operating at full percent. So I need to make sure that I get enough sleep. My biggest problem is just slowing down my brain, because I'll come home, and part of the pros and the cons of my business is I'm working internationally. So I said to you this morning, I was up at 5:30 talking to people in the States, and then people want to talk at night, Europeans or whoever, and it's really hard to switch off. And so that's my biggest challenge. And what I'm trying to do unsuccessfully is to, like, okay, it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever. Put your phone away and spend some time with your family, or just chill out, do something, yoga, or not that I do yoga after work, but try to do something like that to just try and wind down so that you quality sleep. And once you've got the quality sleep, you can deal with, I feel like I can deal with anything if I'm fully charged. Like, bring it on.
Yeah.
But when you start, energy levels start getting lower and it gets on top of you and you're stressed out, you bring that home and it's not good.
Yeah, when you don't sleep, like I've got a few kids, and my youngest one's like 6 months, and he was up all night, like for the last 2 nights. And then when you wake up and don't have a lot of sleep, your mind can start running, and it's really important to like be self-aware enough to be like, whatever negative thoughts that are coming into my head right now, like don't even go there. You know what I mean? Don't even listen to that, because that's you just haven't slept. So don't even get involved with that, and wait till later on until you've had a good night's sleep before you start processing things and stuff like that, which I think is really important. But thanks for coming on today. I'm a little bit frustrated because we don't have enough time, and I've got so many more things I wanted to ask you around the business. But I think I'll get you in again, because we should probably do an episode where we can kind of dive a bit deeper in terms of like how you've run the business, and that's probably the aspect that we haven't been able to cover today, because you can't cover everything in an hour. But I've got some like rapid fire questions I want to run you through.
Yep, hit me.
If you're all good with that.
Yeah.
Feel free to answer or pass, but I mean they're pretty easy ones. But yeah, thanks so much for coming in.
Pleasure.
And today, so cool. So how big is your team, Dan?
I think we're knocking on 110 at the moment.
Okay. Next, I'm going to ask you how you manage that, because we don't have any time for that now at the moment. What's your company structure like? How many people are sort of out on the road? Salespeople versus warehouse people versus admin?
Yeah.
Roughly.
Well, that's a tricky one to answer, but I've got a senior leadership team that cover off marketing. You've met Lisa. We've got Tendai and supply chain. Tony looks after commercial. Ben looks after product and innovation. Maya looks after finance, and then Murray looks after like our equity investments. And so those guys sort of drive the business.
And then they just report to you.
Yeah, every week we have a sit-down session, and we talk about what's going well, what's not going well. We've got, and then like I said, we've got multiple reps on the road offshore. We've got 3 or 4 New Zealand reps in different parts, in the South Island, the Lower North Island, North Island, and then we've got a customer service team in Auckland.
Awesome. What was your revenue last year?
80-something million.
Cool. What's the cost of an average Abodo order? Trick question.
Well, yeah, I don't know. We're doing more and more small orders, which has been quite painful because it costs us the same to do a small order than a big order.
Right.
And a lot of them are quite we call them top-ups, and everyone goes, oh, God, top-up, because the builder's on site, they've got 90% of the house, and they're like, we need this extra bit of cladding, and then Abodo, you need to do this urgently, and and it creates pain points because it's slow to produce a small order.
Right.
But I don't know, a house lot might be 20 grand, something like that.
Okay, cool. Favorite type of timber to work with?
Well, yeah, there's only one choice there, mate. It's Abodo.
It's not so much of a trick question. What's the most rewarding part of your job currently?
Seeing people grow, and like I don't want to mention names now because but there's some people in our business that have started from the bottom, and they've started from temping, and now they are managers, and that's it's pretty cool for me.
Awesome. Texting or talking on the phone?
It depends on how. To be honest, I have phone talking overload. So sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I can't talk on the phone. This person wants to call. I don't know, time and place, mate. Like sometimes a text is suitable. Sometimes if it's a bigger conversation, you just have to do that on the phone or face to face.
Cool. EV or petrol head?
EV.
Would you rather have a beer with a silviculturist? Do you know what that is?
Yes, I do.
Forestry worker. I had to look that up. So either a beer with a forestry worker, an architect, a builder, or the end consumer.
Yeah, I like to talk to all of them. It's an easy answer, but I saw you had John from Matter on the show. I mean, I caught up with him a couple of weeks ago. I just love to talk to creative people in architecture, but then I love to talk to builders. I've got good friends, Marty, you should probably get him on, the Scottish builder. He's a builder. I love to talk to him about building. I mean, life's about getting little bits of everything, right? Variety is the spice of life, so I like to get little bits of information from everyone. I'm a generalist. I can't do any of those things well, but I like to hear from those people and get their insights.
Yeah. Okay, good answer. Are you a jock or a hippie?
I don't know, somewhere in between.
Wine or whiskey?
Probably wine.
These days, builders are A, professional, B, problem solvers, C, unorganized.
Every builder, lots of builders are different. I mean, I'll give you a couple of examples. When I built my house at Oiraki 8-9 years ago, which is all clad in Abodo as you'd expect, I got a call from the neighbour saying, "Why are these builders pouring concrete on my place?" So I was off the site. So that is the unorganised builder. But I've got other builders, like when we built the cabin, there was some massive foundation problem. They found a giant rock underneath the foundation where the piles were. And so, the Dunlop Builders guys were like, "Hey, we'll solve this. We'll send off the drawings to the engineer, get it signed off, and the problem's solved." And then at that point you go, you've got a good builder when they are dealing with the problem, coming up with a solution, getting the engineer to sign off on it before you even know about the problem. Then you've got a good builder.
Yeah, shout out Dunlop. We're going to get those guys on as well.
Yeah, I've talked to Bryce about that. He's been a bit evasive, but I'm pretty sure he'll come.
Yeah, come on, Bryce. We'll be nice. Are you too mean or too nice to your staff?
Too nice.
What's your most used emoji?
I don't know. Probably thumbs up. I was about to say shit, but no, it's not. It's normally thumbs up.
Are you an extrovert or introvert?
I don't know. Sometimes they say there's all these theories on that, but I think someone says if people sap your energy, you're an introvert. I like a bit of both. I definitely not full on extrovert. I need my own space. Somewhere in between, but I also like people. So,
what's your favorite business or non-business book?
If you look at a real basic business book, and I think a lot of builders would fall into this category, it's a book called The E-Myth, and it basically, the synopsis is that just because you're good at making pies doesn't mean you should be a pie shop owner. And I think that's a good book. There's another really interesting book that I think most people should read if they're in the trade or if they run any business. It's called Priceless. It's about setting prices.
Okay, yeah, I think that'd be a good one for builders too. What's one item you can't live without?
I was flying around in Europe earlier this year, and they lost my luggage, and I don't normally carry check-in luggage, but this time I did, and I lost everything. For 3 or 4 days while they tried to find the luggage. And I actually really enjoyed it. So I think going with nothing, I had clothes and stuff and a laptop, but going with nothing is actually really refreshing. So if you can do that, give it a shot.
Yeah.
If it's forced upon you.
Freeing, eh?
Yeah. But I'd probably need my phone. That'd probably be the main thing I need.
Yeah, well, everyone these days, right? What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
What's the best piece of advice I've ever received? There's a quote that I had on my desk when I was young, and it was, "Make thyself a master of speech, and thereby thou shalt gain the upper hand." And the takeaway I got from that was, if you can be good at communicating, particularly verbally, you're going to be in a much better position in the future than someone that can't communicate. And so verbal communication.
Very good. I think that's a good place to finish us off. Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was good. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on. And
Cheers.
I think, Builders would have got a lot out of it. I've definitely learnt, and we'll definitely get you back on to sort of dive deeper into that business aspects, because I think a lot of builders would benefit from that business and operational side and growth and team management and all that sort of stuff. So, appreciate you coming on. Thanks,
Good man.
Dan.
Cheers, Brad.